Although the Undying Lands are primarily for immortal beings, the Lord of the Rings sees several mortals traveling to Valinor, including Frodo and Bilbo Baggins. The Return of the King's ending shows both former ringbearers departing from Middle-earth alongside Gandalf, boarding a ship to the Undying Lands. Samwise Gamgee doesn't join them until later, but he's yet another hobbit who winds up there. And this raises questions about why Merry and Pippin don't journey to the Undying Lands after the Lord of the Rings, as both hobbits boast heroic feats during the War of the Ring. But heroics don't automatically grant one passage to Valinor, and even Aragorn doesn't go to the Undying Lands after the Lord of the Rings. Legolas ventures there because it's standard for the elves, and Gimli is granted entry because of his bond with Legolas. However, the hobbits that are allowed entry to the Undying Lands go there under special circumstances. This explains why Merry and Pippin don't end their journeys there, even though Frodo and Sam both do. Why Frodo went to Valinor at the end of Lord of the Rings. Being a ringbearer grants Frodo passage to the Undying Lands. Gandalf, Ian McKellen, helping Frodo, Elijah Wood, onto a boat in the Grey Havens. Despite the Undying Lands being inaccessible to most mortal beings, Frodo and Bilbo are given passage to the realm after the events of the Lord of the Rings. The two hobbits are exceptions to the rule because they're ringbearers, a role that comes with great responsibility, and also takes a massive toll on the person stepping into it. This is why Frodo leaves Middle-earth. He still suffers the devastating effects of wearing the One Ring, even years after destroying it. The injuries Frodo sustains carrying the ring and the emotional weight of his journey push him to seek peace. Elves and other beings who venture to the Undying Lands find rest and tranquility there. So this is why this realm is the ideal place for ringbearers to go, especially after facing as much trauma as Frodo. He's permitted there because he carried the One Ring, but he makes the choice to leave Middle-earth behind because he needs to heal. It's a fitting and deserved end for Frodo, even if it's a bit bittersweet. And Frodo and Bilbo aren't the only hobbits who go to the Undying Lands after the Lord of the Rings, though it takes Sam longer to travel there. How, when and why Sam went to the Undying Lands after LOTR. Sam is also technically a ringbearer. Sean Astin as Samwise Gamgee looking confused in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. J.R. Tolkien's appendices confirm that Samwise Gamgee goes to the Undying Lands after Frodo and Bilbo, also sailing there, though he waits until after Rose's death. Upon returning to the Shire after the War of the Ring, Sam and Rosie Cotton get married and start a family. Sam also becomes mayor of the Shire, so he has a long and happy life there before he joins Frodo in Valinor. He embarks on his own journey to the Undying Lands in the 61st year of the Fourth Age, after Rosie dies on Mid-Year's Day. Sam being allowed into the Undying Lands may seem surprising at first, but it makes sense when you realize that he's also technically a ring-bearer. Although Sam doesn't carry the One Ring nearly as long as Bilbo or Frodo, but he does take it following Frodo's near-fatal encounter with Shelob. When Sam believes Frodo is lost, he takes the One Ring in the hopes of completing their quest himself. Fortunately, Shelob doesn't actually manage to kill Frodo, so Sam doesn't bear the object for very long. Sam isn't tempted by the ring throughout their journey in The Lord of the Rings, and judging by the life he builds after the War of the Ring, he isn't as affected by the object as Frodo. Even so, he's given passage to the Undying Lands because of his brief stint as ring-bearer. Merry and Pippin had no need to go to the Undying Lands. They never carried the One Ring. While Merry and Pippin faced their share of trauma during the War of the Ring, neither of them has a reason to go to the Undying Lands after it ends. Unlike Frodo and Sam, neither of the other hobbits carry the One Ring. They don't accompany Frodo all the way to Mordor like Sam does. Instead, they're taken by orcs, find their way to Isengard, and eventually reunite with the rest of the Fellowship. There's no denying that the other two hobbits play pivotal roles in the fight against Sauron, but they don't struggle with the effects of the ring since they're not ring-bearers. They aren't among the mortals who can go to Valinor, but they also have little reason to seek out such a fate. Never bearing the weight of Sauron's One Ring, they're able to move on from the War of the Ring in a way that Frodo, and even Sam to some extent, simply cannot. And Tolkien suggests that both Merry and Pippin lead happy lives after the Lord of the Rings, so their fates are satisfying, even though they don't go to the Undying Lands. What happened to Merry and Pippin after Lord of the Rings? They both become leaders. Merry, Frodo, Sam, and Pippin standing as the royal court bows to them in the ending of the Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit's return to the Shire in the Lord of the Rings movies differs from Tolkien's books, as Peter Jackson's films cut the scouring of the Shire. But their homecoming is presumably followed by the same events in both versions of the story, and Merry and Pippin continue to have interesting lives after LOTR. On the heels of Frodo's departure to the Undying Lands, Merry throws himself into scholarly pursuits, writing about his adventures during the War of the Ring. He also becomes the 8th Master of Backland, allowing him to have more adventures and a position of authority. Pippin's life after the Lord of the Rings isn't as studious as Merry's, but it also sees him taking on an important position. Following the death of his father, Pippin becomes the Thane of the Shire, a role that involves overseeing its governing body and military. Pippin also continues to travel and maintain his relationships outside the Shire, something that's unthinkable for many hobbits, especially prior to the Lord of the Rings. Merry and Pippin's fates prove that there are many ways to be of use in Middle-earth, even if they don't grant one access to the Undying Lands.